Today, we are doing part 2 of a 3-part series about nurturing your customers. And today I want to talk about bringing in new customers and the systems and processes that need to be behind, not just the actual bringing them in, but what do we do with them once we've got them in the door? So much of our time and energy is spent focusing on how do we get new customers? How do we bring in new customers? Where are the new customers going to come from? What am I going to do to develop content and advertising and all of the things that are needed in order to tell people that we actually exist? But not a lot of time and attention is given to what happens once they come through the door, once they send us their email address, once they make a purchase from us. What happens then? And so today we're going to be talking about the different ways in which to bring people into your business and the systems and processes behind that to make sure that you are really nurturing those customers when they come to you for the very first time. So before we do anything, we need to get our messaging right. And there's no use spending hundreds of dollars on newspaper ads or radio ads or Facebook ads if the message is not correct. And so many small businesses really fall down when it comes to their messaging and their marketing because they think that the best thing to do, the best way to attract customers is to tell everybody how fabulous they are. We are the best of this. In our area, we have the best this, we do this. Look at our brand new product. When actually what we should be doing in our messaging is telling our customers, our ideal customers, how we're going to solve their problem. And I've stepped you through the story brand framework in another episode of the podcast, but just a quick kind of whip through. We need to make sure that we are developing our target market, the people we are speaking to as a character, and really figuring out what that character's problem is. Because we don't need to position ourselves in our marketing as us being the hero. We want to make our customers the hero. We want to be the guide that gets them from where they are now with their problem through to the solution. And so by positioning your business as the guide, giving them a plan, forcing them to take action that will give them great results, and really mapping out what that looks like for them is the place to start. You don't want to put any money behind any kind of advertising until you really have your message right. So you need to really figure out who that target market is. You can't just say that your product is for everybody. You can't just say, anyone can come and buy my cheese. Yes, it is true that probably anyone can come and buy your cheese. But if you're going to advertise to everybody, then you're really going to advertise to nobody. Nobody's going to hear the message that you have. So you really want to speak to that character. And if you're selling cheese, then women 40 plus with not a lot of time on their hands and 3 kids at home would be an ideal customer market. I do love me some cheese. But I digress. We're not selling cheese today. But figure out who your target market is and be really specific. What kind of TV shows do they watch? How old are they? What demographic are they in? Perhaps it's relevant, where they live. Perhaps you have a business that is only deliverable of a product that's local. You need to be able to make sure that that's part of your target as well. And then figure out what their problem is. You want to be able to spell out that problem, be able to spell it out really clearly so that when somebody sees that ad out there in the marketplace, they go, oh, that's me. Yes, I have that problem. I get it. I know exactly what you're talking about. And then you take them on a journey where you explain, yes, we understand. We are the people to help you solve the problem. And then the most important part in your messaging is if you buy our product or service, this is the fabulous result you're going to get. You really want to map out and show your customers not just that you are the person to solve the problem, but what that magical elixir looks like on the other side once they've made the transformation, once they've got the results. You really want to map out for them what that looks like so they can get a feel for it. The story brand framework also maps you through the ability to tell people what will happen if they don't buy your product or service. So, what that failure looks like. And that failure could be, they end up in the same place they're at now, or they end up somewhere worse. But you need to be able to talk to these things as part of your messaging so that people really understand, not just, they don't care about the product itself. People care about the problem being solved. Most of the time, they don't care how it gets solved. They just want it to be solved. So you really want to come in there and speak to that. You want to speak to actually solving that problem. So once you get that right, once you're telling a clear story about who you are as the guide that's going to transform them from where they are now with this problem through to the, great success at the end of the journey, then you are, free to go and put some money out there into the market to bring customers into your business. And that may be social media. It may be talking about your product at a networking event. It may be having the opportunity to speak in front of, a room full of people that are your target market. It may be that you want to do some direct mail. It may be you want to put together a print publication. Perhaps you want to turn up at a trade show and be able to tell people about your product. Perhaps there's some online advertising that you can do in somebody else's, on somebody else's website, or some kind of collaboration with someone else. Perhaps you want to take a stab at some email marketing. You could write a blog. You could pick up the phone and cold call people. You could put together a webinar. There are so many ways in which you can start to bring customers into your business. But until you get that message right, it's really, really important to make sure that you don't throw a whole lot of money towards it until you have the right message. But let's say you have the right message and you've put it, you've put some money behind it and you have people coming in the door. What happens next? And this is the part that, the fortune is in the follow-up. You really want to make sure that once somebody gets in touch with you, you are, building that relationship. We talk about customers, not buying from you until they know, like, and trust you, but that trust really comes in when that relationship is being formed. So you want to make sure that when you're relationship building and when they come to you for the first time, that they get a really speedy turnaround in terms of communication from you, that the communication is clear, that it's, on brand. There's nothing, more out of, to make you feel queasy in the tummy than, you buy something from a website that has got really clear branding and then you get an email back and it just seems not quite right. It's not aligned, whether the coloring is off or whether it's, off in terms of its tone. And then you think, who took my money? Where's my money gone? And you'd kind of want to backpedal and make a stop on that credit card payment, when it could just be, it is the right person and they are quite legitimate, but they just haven't put a lot of thought into that follow-up. So if people are coming to you for the first time and perhaps they're giving you their email address, perhaps that's the transaction that happens straight up. You want to make sure that there is an email sequence that is set up, that once that email comes through, there's an automatic reply that goes to it. So they know that, yes, we value your email. We value the fact that you clicked on our link and went through and gave us your important information. And here's something that we're going to give you in return. And so then you want to be able to nurture them using that email address. If somebody comes into your shop, perhaps they buy something, perhaps they make an inquiry, perhaps they request a quote, then you want to make sure there is follow-up. And it's not always possible. If you're a retail store and somebody walks in and has a look at a few things and then walks out, it's hard to follow up that customer. But if you're doing what you can to be able to get their details so that you can then follow them up and make sure that, if they have needs and you have a problem, if they have a problem that you can solve, that you're then there to solve it, that is really, really important. I think so many times we put a lot of effort into our social media and people message us on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm completely guilty of this as well, which is why somebody else on my team handles it now, because I was so bad at it that I had to delegate it to someone who's great at it. And the people we have now are great at it. Thank goodness. But that follow-up in terms of the messaging is nothing worse than, great ads being out there, or you working really hard on your content, putting great content into your social media. People send you a DM on Instagram and then they wait 3 weeks to hear back from you. So you really want to make sure that follow-up is consistent. You want to make sure that there is a process behind that follow-up. Perhaps you have rules in your business around how that follow-up happens. Perhaps it's a standard response that goes out. Perhaps it goes out from the work email that has the correct branding and the correct colors and the correct tone. Perhaps it is an automated sequence that already happens. And perhaps if you have customers that give you their contact details, perhaps for a free download, perhaps you get their contact details at a networking event, perhaps they walk into your store and give you their email address. You want to have something in place in terms of being able to stay in touch with those customers. Is there an email sequence you can set up where they hear from you maybe this week, maybe in 3 weeks' time, maybe in 6 months' time, just to remind them that you're around, that yes, you're still solving the problems of people like them, and, gives them some kind of special offer so that they continue to be engaged with you and your brand. That's a lot to think about, isn't it? So I might leave it there. But just as a recap, you want to make sure that in your advertising, you're talking about the customer's problem, not just about how fabulous you are. You want to be using all the tools and all of the different ways in which you can target your ideal customers, and, making sure that when you are attracting new customers, you're going where your customers are. You're not expecting your customers to come to you. So if your customers are on Instagram and you're doing a direct mail out, you're probably not going to get a lot of follow through from that. But if you know that your customers listen to a certain radio station all the time and you're advertising there, you're going to get a whole lot more bang for your buck. So being really clear and really strategic about where you're spending your money when it comes to your advertising, and then making sure you have robust systems in place to make sure that once they come in the door, they then have a process that they're going to fall into, and preferably automated so that it's not going to take up too much of your time, but something that is going to nurture them, continue to engage them in your brand and what your brand is up to. And that will mean that in the long term, all of that money that you spend on advertising will be so much more worthwhile. And thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I love the fact that you're engaged in your business and that you're ready for big growth. You're ready to make changes. If you want to sit down with me and talk about what that looks like for you in your business and your life, I would love to meet with you. Just go to Simply You and I on simplystacymorgan.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week.